Hey guys, we'll be starting in just a moment. Typically we wait just a few minutes for people to join and have enough time to join the Zoom, and we'll get started. If you just recently joined, we'll be starting in just a few moments. We're just going to make sure all the viewers have had time to join, so we'll be just starting in a few minutes. We'll give it just a few more minutes to get started. Thanks for waiting, everyone. Hope everyone's feeling great today. If you want to use the chat, it'd be cool to see where everyone is tuning in from. This is North American wide, so I'm just curious where everyone's tuning in from. If you want to drop in your province or state in the chat, it could be cool to kind of get things started like that while we're waiting. Okay, so it looks like we've got everyone here. We're going to be starting now. Perfect. So thanks guys for joining. I'm really excited that we're all here together. I'm hosting the second webinar for North America for C-Series. Today we're talking about orders and transactions. This is one of the most requested topics we've got for C-Series, so I'm happy to share this with all of you here today. So just for some housekeeping notes, before we get started, I'm just gonna let you know that this is being recorded. So you'll have access to this slideshow and this discussion later on. It'll be posted to our YouTube channel, so you can check it out there after. There's gonna be a Q&A through the chat, so you can just use the Q&A button at the bottom bar of Zoom. We're having two agents that are gonna be answering your questions live throughout the chat, so if any questions pop up, let us know. There's also going to be a brief Q&A at the end where we're going to just close up any unanswered questions. It's going to be about a 10-minute long slot of time. Just to keep in mind, let's keep the questions not shop specific. We just want to make sure all the merchants on the call are getting the same value out of the answers we give today. And let's keep the questions specific to the topic at hand. We always have chat available or support available if you have any questions with your shop, so we can always help you there as well. So just to introduce myself, I'm Ryan. I work with Lightspeed as an e-commerce specialist. I help merchants online every month, running their online business, helping them optimize and teaching them how to use their online store. Before working with Lightspeed, I've also worked with a handful of other e-commerce platforms, helping small businesses in a very similar role. So I've been doing this for quite a while now. We also have Chris, who's going to be helping out answering some of your questions, and as well as Delano. So look out for those two names. They'll be helping out today through the Q&A. So today's agenda we're going to be discussing is the autonomy of an order. We're just going to go over the important features that you can find on the order and break each section down. We're going to be discussing how to refund payments, the differences between refunding with Lightspeed payments and using a third-party processor. The refund workflows are relatively the same, but we're going to be talking about the difference between the two. We're going to be discussing return reasons. What's a return reason on e-commerce and how does it differ from an actual refund? We're going to move on to modifying an order and some really helpful use cases that you might need to take as a merchant on modifying orders. And then we're going to wrap up today with validating orders. So let's start with the anatomy of an order. So just to get started, I think it makes the most sense to jump into an actual order with you guys. So we're just here on the e-commerce dashboard. When you get a new order, you're going to see a red bubble pop up beside the orders tab right here. There's also plenty of ways you can get notified for orders if you're not logged into e-com, which we can discuss at the end during Q&A, just because that's a really important thing to be able to see. So if you're not logged into e-com, you can get notified. But we'll talk more about that later. So if we click on the order list, we can see these are all the orders that are placed on my online store. And we can jump in by clicking on an order number. So this is the order overview page. There's a lot going on here, and we're going to break down each of the sections. So first, we're going to start off with the payment box. You're going to see here, this is the payment method the customer chose at checkout. So they chose Stripe as the processor or to pay with credit card. The number beside where it shows 0 is associated with the fees. As a merchant, you can add on additional fees if you want your customers to pay that. I didn't set up any additional fees for customers to charge or to pay, so it's showing as 0. When an order is placed, you're going to see a debit invoice. Typically, it's just going to be the total of the order. This is the amount they paid, which is why it's showing as debit. This doesn't actually indicate they paid with like a Visa debit or something like that. It's typically just the amount they paid. This green bubble beside also will tell you the same thing if it's been paid, or it'll show red as not paid. And we can click on the invoice here, and it'll just give us some more information about the payment they made, so the products they bought. You're able to include a delivery time frame if maybe you don't have the product in stock yet, or the customer would be curious about how long it's going to take to ship. And a really important feature up top here is how to resend an invoice. You can click the resend invoice button right here. Just in case a customer forgets or misplaces where an invoice is, you can always resend that to them there. At the bottom of the payment box, we're going to take a look at the Add a Credit Invoice button. This is the start of how you process a refund. Now, we do have a separate section where we're going to be going over everything about refunds, so I'm not going to go super in depth with how that works just yet, but we'll definitely be touching on that soon. Then we've got the mark as not paid, or may also say mark as paid. This just allows you to change the status of an order as a merchant, just gives you a bit more control over your orders. Typically, this is going to be used if you're using a manual payment method, such as pay by invoice, or maybe pay by bank transfer. You can verify the payment was accepted and then click the order as mark as paid. If the order was processed with a credit card processor, typically it's going to come over automatically as mark as paid if the order was processed okay. The box beside payment is shipping. It works relatively the same way. So at the top, you have the shipping method the customer selected at checkout. You've got the shipping fees associated with the shipping method. And then by default, when an order is placed, it creates a default shipment for you automatically. So if we click on the shipment number here, we can see all the products that are compiled from the order into a shipment for you already. And you can add a tracking number here if you like and notify the customer. I've done a little bit of extra work on this, which we'll be talking about closer to the end. I did something called a split shipment. That's why you're seeing these additional lines. Really looking forward to sharing that feature with you later on. We've got the mark as shipped and mark as not shipped button. Again, this is a really important feature just to give you more control as a merchant when your orders are being shipped or not. On the right-hand side, we've got the customer information. So this is the name and the contact details that the customer gave at checkout. We can see here that the customer checked out as a registered user, or it could say guest if they checked out as a guest. And we can see the checkout type they used. Here we have the multi-step checkout, but it might also say new checkout. Below that, we've got the shipping address and the billing address. And then we can use these two features at the bottom. We've got notify customer. This will let you send a direct email to the customer. And we've got the edit customer button, which will let you edit the customer's details that will apply to the order. On the left-hand side, we've got the product breakdown. We've got a create return button, which we'll be talking about in its own section. So we'll just pass over that for now. We've got the products the customer ordered. If we click on the view details button, we can see the subtotal, we can see the shipping fees, credit card fees, and taxes associated with the order. Another really cool feature I want to draw some attention to is the in-stock button. This is a live stock notifier. So when you're looking at an order, this is updated live to let you know where your inventory is at a higher level. You can always open the product to see those details, but this just lets you know if the product is in stock, or it might show a red bubble that's showing out of stock. And this doesn't stay at the time of the order. So if you look back at an old order, it's always going to show the live status of it. Below the product breakdown, we've got an internal notes section. The internal notes section is good for just adding extra context on the order if you need it. And to the right of there, we have the activity history. This is a really great feature on the order if you need to do some investigating, or if you want to see what kind of actions have taken place on your orders. It will give you a detailed list, or just a list of events that have taken place on the order. Key difference here, you can take a note, you're going to see some events with the automatic tag to it, and then some with the manual tag. Automatic events indicate that it was done by the system. There are a lot of automatic events that happen when an order is placed, like the system will create a shipment for you automatically. We'll also create an invoice for you automatically. You're going to see these events with manual. This indicates a user profile took this action. So you can send a payment notification, as you can see here, or the order was created. I created this from a quote, so this actually was manually created by me. That's why it's showing as a manual order. And it will also include the user's name often and the history here. So really helpful feature. Below that, we've got the cancel order button. It's important to note that we don't use the cancel order button to refund payments. This is helpful if you're just it's going to take the inventory from this order and put it back into retail inventory to sell. It's also going to send a transaction back to your reporting, so it's going to keep your reporting accurate. It's going to look like a refund. Now, to actually refund customers to send the payment back to their card, we're going to be talking about that in just a moment after this section, how that works, because the workflow is a little different. So we would just want to make sure that canceling order isn't the best way to refund. The next thing we're going to look at here is the more button at the top right. If we click on that, we get a few more options. You can change the status of the order. You can take a look at your message history. So when you use that notify customer button, you can actually see your history pop up here. We can change the status of the order, and we can send payment reminders. Let's take a look here before moving on. We're just going to take a look at the order list. So a lot of those actions we looked at from the order page, we can actually select multiple orders here by selecting these checkboxes. This is a really common feature you can use in Lightspeed for products or for orders. You'll see this 5 items selected button. If you click on that, it's going to reveal a menu of options you can choose from. So you can in bulk change the status of an order, you can send your payment reminders, or you can cancel orders in bulk as well. You can print shipping labels. This is specifically for Easy Post. If you're using a manual shipping method, you'll just have to create your own label, as that's how it was intended. You've got print packing slips. You can do that in bulk as well if you're fulfilling multiple orders at once. And let's talk quick about the order statuses. A lot of them are pretty self-explanatory, but we'll just run through some of the more common ones. So we've got the completed order status. This indicates that the order has been marked as paid and it's been marked as shipped. So there's no more work to be done on this order. You'll see this exchange status quite a bit here. This is actually a custom status that I set up myself. So we're going to be talking about how to create your own custom statuses for your store. As you can see, I've done quite a few exchanges. We've got the canceled order status. This just indicates that the order has been canceled, so the stock has been returned to your inventory to resell, and it's going to correct your reporting so the transaction zeroes out. We've got awaiting payment as well. So this is a really important status to be aware of. This indicates that the order was placed, however, there was an issue accepting payment. So whenever you see an awaiting payment order, it's a good idea to check your credit card processor for the transaction to see if there is a transaction there, like a payment accepted for the order. If there isn't a payment showing, it just means that the order wasn't placed. It also can show you some important information if there are details about it. So if it was declined for, maybe there was a typo on the card, it could also be blocked by the bank, blocked by the credit card processor due to a risk of fraud. So just keep an eye out for those awaiting payment orders. I'd always suggest, verifying or seeing if you can find some more information on those specific payments. And then the last two that are just shown here is the ready for pickup status and the prep in store pickup status. These are both related to in-store pickup orders, and we'll just kind of show you the progress that has taken place on that order. So when an order has been placed and paid, it's going to show as prep in-store pickup. This just indicates you to get the order ready. Once the order is ready, you can change the status to ready for pickup, which is the same button. And this just indicates that the customer should be coming through and picking up the order. Once it's been picked up, you can click as marked as picked up, which is completed. These buttons, I'll show you really quick. If you click on this order, it'll show right here. So this is a shipping order, but if it was a pickup in store order, it's just going to be this button, mark as picked up, prep in store pickup. So hopefully that clears that up. So let's move on. We just talked about the order page, all the important sections on the order overview page, and some of the order statuses. Let's talk about refunding and how you can do that with a credit invoice. So we're just going to go to an order here together and click on order 17. So let's run through the workflow of a refund. So it's important to click add a credit invoice. This is really important as well, doing your invoices for e-commerce orders within e-commerce. That's because e-commerce has the ability to send a remote refund. Unlike the terminal needs the card to be present or it needs the card information to be entered. With e-commerce, it has the ability to send a remote payment back to the customer card they paid with. So it's important to do this work here. So it's going to show you this form when you click add a credit invoice. Let's say the customer no longer wants the Gorillas D-Sides vinyl, so we just add the one beside this to refund. So you can refund by line item or refund the shipping costs. You're going to see some buttons down here. So update stock. So that's going to return the stock to your inventory. You can choose to notify customer if you want. One of the key differences between Lightspeed Payments and a third-party processor. Third-party processor would be anything but Lightspeed Payments essentially. So if you're using Stripe, Cayenne, PayPal, Authorize.net, Moneris, any of those, they'll be all considered third-party. So the main difference is that with Lightspeed Payments, there is a separate box just below Notify Customer that would say refund. So when you're doing a credit invoice with Lightspeed Payments, you would just want to toggle on refund and click add. With a third-party processor, there's an additional step. So we don't have that refund button here. So you just click add the credit invoice. You're going to see a credit invoice is placed for the album. This sends a transaction back to retail just to keep your reporting and inventory accurate. Since this was processed through Stripe and not through Lightspeed, we actually need to just go to Stripe and refund the $30 directly to the customer there. That's how you would send the payment back to them. So that's the process of doing a refund on e-com. So either Lightspeed Payments, you can just refund directly on the credit invoice, one step, or with a third-party processor, you're going to place a credit invoice to keep your inventory accurate, and then go to the processor to refund the transaction, the second step. So let's move on. We just talked about the refunding process workflow, how to confirm a refund. So, this can happen from time to time. Maybe you have a customer that reaches out and they claim they haven't got their refund or just wondering when they can expect it. It's pretty common to see that. Best way to do this is to check your credit card processor. So whether that's Stripe, you would just log into your Stripe portal or your PayPal portal. If you're using Lightspeed Payments, we've got the Lightspeed Transaction Status Report. This is a report found in retail. We're going to show you what that looks like later on, but that's just a great way you can get that information for the customer. So let's now look at returns. I know the word is very similar, but they have two different meanings in e-commerce, two different actions that they can take place. So let's clear that up together. So let's take a look at a return. So we're back on the order we are looking at. The return is down here. And what a return does is it places an internal note to help you keep track, and it complements the refunds or the credit invoice you see. So we can look back at our orders and have a bit more context as to why an order was refunded in the first place. So we have the refund up there, which is great. But now we can click on create a return. It opens up the form and now we can complete that. So we returned this vinyl. We have some statuses to change to. I'm going to just pick return authorized, but there's quite a few different ones you can select. It's going to ask for a return reason or action. You can see a few options that are appearing here. These are actually ones that I set up myself through the back office, and we'll walk through how to create your own. It's recommended you make some preset ones. In the case of maybe a customer who's going to request a refund through your online store, if you have that enabled, they're not actually able to create their own return reasons or actions. So it's good to maybe set some up in advance. So I'm just going to say request exchange. That's one that I created. And we'll just say it was an exchange and the product was exchanged. You've got notify customer. You can toggle that on and you can see it opens a drop down where you can send a custom message to a customer about the refund. Really important feature to use. Then we've got the customer content or customer comment section. If the customer requested a refund through your website, they can attach a custom message that you can read here. And then below that, you've got staff notes, so you can just include some extra information if you need to. So if all this information looks good, we can just click add. And now on the order, if we scroll down, we should see that a return has been added. Like I mentioned, this just adds a bit more information with our credit invoice. So it just is a bit more helpful to look back. We can open the return number and see the same form we just filled out and make changes to it. And if you want to keep track of all the refunds you've taken place on your store, we can actually look over to the left-hand side in the left menu, and you're going to see a returns tab. These are all the returns that have been placed on your store. This is different from the credit invoice. When you place a credit invoice, this isn't made for you automatically, so you want to create your returns to see this. And then at the bottom here, we've got return reasons and return actions. So if we just click on any of the add or edit return, we can click on this. You can see these are the ones I've set up. If you click on add reason, this is how you can create your own. You can basically make any ones you want. And this is going to be selectable from the customer's perspective if they're in their user profile. We mentioned that customers are able to request refunds through their website or through your website. This is possible. You can also disable this feature. Either way, if you have the feature enabled or disabled, you can still process refunds. And when a customer requests a refund, they can never just do the refund completely on their own. It's always going to request or require your approval of the refund. So if you want to disable that or enable that, we are just going to click on back to home, and we'll click on settings. We'll then go to the advanced tab here. And just at the top, you're going to see allow returns. So I just have that enabled. You have the choice if you want to disable that or not. So we just looked at what a return is, how it differs from a credit invoice or a refund, how you can create your own return reasons and return requests. Let's continue on and look at more ways you can modify an order. So before you can understand modifying orders, it's important to know what quotes are in Lightspeed. Quotes are essentially orders you build from scratch in your back office. Let's take a look at one. Let's go back to the dashboard. I'm just going to click on the orders tab. We've got the orders tab and the quotes tab. If we look at an order, like the one we just did, we'll notice a few things. Once an order is placed, we can't change any of the details. Once an order is placed, we can't change the shipping method. We aren't able to change the payment method after it's placed. We can't edit the products or add new ones. Once the order is placed, it can't be edited. So a way to do this is actually through a quote. So these are all the quotes I've placed on this store. And like I mentioned, it's just basically building an order from scratch in the back office and not through your online site. So you can click on create quote to get started. And it's just going to ask you for the customer information. And you can see at the top bar here, steps 1 to 5, it's going to walk you through building an order. Quotes are really great to use if maybe you have like a product that requires custom pricing and you need to maybe get customer approval beforehand, or if a product needs a custom shipping quote. That's also a great opportunity to use quotes and get the customer's approval before you submit it as an order. Now, what if we want to basically make some smaller changes to an order we already have? There's a way we can get around building the whole order from scratch, and it's called duplicating. This is commonly what you're going to use if you're running an exchange through e-com to maintain your inventory accuracy. So if we just click on order 17, the order we've been using as an example, let's continue this scenario together and say that the customer actually wanted to exchange the Gorillas D-Sides vinyl with another. So what we can do is click on the More button and click Duplicate. So it's just going to duplicate the order for us in our back office, and you're going to notice a few things right away. So it looks super similar to the order page. All the details have been filled out. It actually created this as a quote. So it's got a quote ID instead of an order ID. It's under the Quotes tab instead of the Orders tab. And you're going to notice there's edit buttons beside each of the products and the shipping info and payment info. We can do a few more things here. So we can click on edit. We can choose a shipping method that's available, or we can even set a custom amount, which is not something you can do on the checkout. So we can send a custom shipping method here and have the customer pay. We can also edit line items on the order. We can change the price or add a discount on the fly. We can also change the quantity. In this example, the customer is exchanging this vinyl, so we're going to remove the old one, and we'll add a product. Let's say they want the Mac Miller album. So now we want to do is make sure the order details are accurate, because we want to make sure it looks good before we convert it to an order. Once we place that as an order, we're not going to be able to change these details. That's why it's important to do it the first time, or we'll have to duplicate the order again. So if everything looks okay here, we can click Convert to Order. You have the option to notify the customer here. Personally, I'm not going to notify the customer. This is just an administrative change to just make sure our inventory is accurate. I don't think the customer really needs to know. Or if they do, you can. So we just convert it to order. So what this is doing is creating a duplicate order. The payment has already been captured in the first transaction. So it shows us awaiting payment, but we can just mark it as paid. Just to make sure that this order is accurate, it's now showing the accurate products that they want. And that's basically all you have to do for an exchange. Now, there is one extra step. If we look at the orders overview, you're probably going to notice, well, we've got the original order here as completed. So we want to fix that. We'll go back to the old order on order 17. And the payment's already been captured, so the payment's in our Stripe account. All we have to do is simply cancel the order. I'm not going to notify the customer. And what that's doing is basically zeroing out this transaction in your retail reporting. So it's not going to show like a double payment in your reporting. That would cause confusion later. Another thing that I'd like to do in this situation is you're going to see the canceled status. That's not exactly accurate because we actually ran an exchange. We can click on More, click on Edit Status, and we can use one of our custom statuses we set up. So this is the one I created in the shop, exchanged. Now you can see that the order is showing as exchanged, and then this is the order that's ready for shipment. So it just kind of helps us understand what exactly happened on this order. Another thing I like to do is maybe take order 18, the new one we're working with, and go back to order 17, the one we canceled, and say an internal note. Just in case, if we want to refer back later exactly why this order was exchanged or what was exchanged with, we can refer to that. So that's a really great thing you can do with modifying an order. Another really helpful thing you can do is do split shipments. So let's take a look at that next. So in this example, maybe the album that they wanted is actually on back order. So we don't have it in stock. And we do have this record player in stock. We can actually split the shipments so we can send the record player separately without the record and make sure the customer is aware of every step. So by default, when a new order is placed, like I mentioned, it creates a default shipment. If we click on the shipment number, we can start by going to the state, and we're just going to change the state to canceled. You have an option here to notify customer. We're going to say no, we don't want the customer to think the shipment's simply canceled, but instead we'll do this. So we'll click save. We'll have a new button here that says create shipment. So you can actually create your own. When you click create shipment, it gives you this form. So let's say first we're going to send out the record player, the vinyl won't go with this shipment. We can add a tracking number. We have it, and then we'll change the state to shipped. We can notify customer now if we want. You can click add. You're going to see that now it's showing partially shipped. We can now create another shipment for the product we're waiting for. So when we open up the form again, it's only going to show the product that's outstanding. So just the one vinyl. We haven't accepted it yet, so I'm just going to click add to do a bit of the work for later. And we can do is add a notify customer, so we can just let the customer know about the order that's on, or the product that's on back order. So that's a good way you can manage that. Then let's say, a week goes by, the product comes in, we can go back to this order, go back to the shipment and finish it. So we got the product in hand, we're ready to ship it. We'll add the tracking number here. We'll change the status to shipped. And we can also notify the customer. And we click save. Now you can see the order is completed. We did a split shipment. We basically split that up. So we can send things at separate times and make sure the customer is aware. So let's talk about validating orders. This is super important to do as a merchant. Maybe you've got a customer that's unsure if they paid or not. Maybe you've got a customer asking about a refund, if it's been placed and when they can expect it. Or maybe you're dealing with suspicious activity. So maybe an order that is placed that you're a bit suspicious of. Especially with e-commerce, there is inherently higher risk because the card is not present. So it's important that we take our time validating our orders and using some of our best practices we provide today, just so you can be a bit more aware of what to look for if you are running into any of these situations. These are best practices as they're not a guarantee, but hopefully this comes in handy when you're dealing with some situations like this. So first, you can always validate a payment with the processor. So if you're using Stripe, if you're seeing an awaiting payment order, you can check the processor to check the transaction. You can check your retail reporting if you're using Lightspeed payments. You can check the Lightspeed transaction status report. That's a great way to validate your payments. You can also see some warning signs, like if the payment was declined for whatever reason. You can get that information from your retail reporting. Oftentimes as well, especially in cases of, if the payment was blocked by the bank or if it was blocked by the payment processor due to risk, the processor will actually reach out to you in a manual email, letting you know that there's a high risk order. So if you are seeing a suspicious order, it's a good idea to maybe wait a minute before fulfilling it and check your inbox and see if you've gotten a message from the payment processor. For example, if you're using Lightspeed payments, I think most processors are the same. The risk team will actually reach out to your email, and if you're seeing multiple orders that are placed that you're suspicious of, you can ask them directly about the different orders that you're seeing. So that's a great tool you can utilize if you're ever in doubt. Let's take a look at some of these examples together on an order. So if you go back to the orders page, I actually placed a faux suspicious order we can look at. So we can look at order 8 here. One of the first signs we look at is if we see the value of the order is much higher than the payments we usually accept on our store. If we're normally getting between $200 to $600 an order, and then suddenly an order worth $700 or $6,700 comes in, that's a bit suspicious. I mean, not inherently wrong, but something we can take a look closer into. If we're seeing awaiting payment orders, and if we check the payment processor and they're showing as declined, they're showing any fraud risk or anything like that, that would be another suspicious sign you can use. Also, the frequency of orders. If you're seeing a high surge in orders that you normally wouldn't place on a given day or you wouldn't normally see on a given day, that can also be suspicious, especially if they're all coming in with high value numbers. In times like this where you're getting a malicious actor that's trying to steal from you, normally you're going to see multiple orders placed at the same time just to see if they can get one of them to stick. So it's good to be vigilant of this. Now let's look specifically at this order 8. So if we're looking at this order, another thing we take a look at is the customer details. So are the customer details accurate? Do you think the customer gave their real name or gave real information that they can be contacted by? Yet again, if someone is trying to commit fraud on your store, they're not going to use their real information. They don't want to be contacted. So it's a good thing we pay close attention to who they are and what information they're giving. We can also use the shipping and billing addresses as an indicator. With e-commerce, it's pretty common to see a separate billing address to a shipping address. So that in itself is not a red flag. We can use the View in Google Maps feature to open a Google Maps tab of the address, and we can look at where they're trying to send the order. Typically, if someone is typically on, I guess, suspicious orders, they're going to place orders that conceal their address. So they're not going to use their real address. Typically, they're going to use like a fulfillment center or a warehouse that they can't actually tie their identity to. So something you can also take a look out for. We can also look at the kinds of products that are being bought. So we can look at the quantity of specific products. Does this look like an authentic order to you? Is someone going to buy 11 copies of the same record? Could be a bit suspicious. You're also going to look at the orders or the products that are typically bought together. If they seem very random or it doesn't seem like an authentic order, it's worth following up on this to get a bit more verification. And when in doubt, if you look through all these signs, the payment went through, and there's no risk warning, but you're still unsure about it in your gut, you can always reach out to the customer as your last resort and just understand and verify this information directly. This is one of the best ways to reduce your chance of chargebacks. If the customer is able to address these issues with you, if they have any issues, it's better to engage the customer directly instead of them just going directly to their credit card. It also is a great opportunity to figure out who's buying from you and to validate your customers. I mean, worst situation is that, you can't get a hold of this customer, it's suspicious. You can just refund the customer and go about your day. So if you're still unsure, definitely reach out to your customer and just get a bit more information and try and validate who they are. So those are some of the best practices we can offer with validating your orders, and just so you can make sure you can fulfill your orders with confidence if you're ever in these situations. This next slide is the Lightspeed transaction status. So I just included some screenshots here. So every processor is going to have something equivalent to this. If you're using Cayenne or Stripe, it's going to look pretty similar to this. Same kind of info is available. What we can do, so this is the transaction status one specific for Lightspeed payments. You can access this under retail in your reporting section. And it's going to be your source of truth when validating payments. So in this first half of the screen, this is what the transaction status looks like. These are each of the payments that are accepted. These are just obviously example orders. You can see the card, the last 4 numbers of the card and the time that it's placed. You're also going to see an order ID. When validating payments, what I always do is use the search bar here and search for an order ID. And then I'll click on filter. What filter does, and you'll see it in the second screenshot I provided, it's the second half down here, is it opens a calendar. So you're able to, you're able to filter the dates and the order ID, and you can find the exact order. It's just a better way that you can filter your orders and find that information more accurately. From there, if you see a payment, you can validate that you received the payment or it's been refunded. If you're not seeing a payment, it means the payment hasn't been accepted, and it might also show as declined. And typically when it's declined, you should see some more information, whether maybe there was a typo on the card, a CVC error. You might also see blocked by the bank, blocked for fraud. You can see these messages. So it's really important to use this report for validating payments. And like I mentioned, it's going to be in your retail reporting. So I think we've got a bit more time than expected, so we can actually include some extra content today. So let's look at our test environment together again. I mentioned this at the beginning about getting notified as a merchant. There's lots of ways you can get notified as a merchant. So you're not always having to log into your account and having to stay updated with your orders that way. there's different ways you can get notified. So there's 3 ways I'd recommend. If you're not getting a lot of orders, or if you want them to be super like literal, you can click on Settings, Advanced, and enter your email you want to get notified at under Feedback BCC emails. What this does is it receives a copy of every order confirmation that's placed. So when I mean it's super literal, it's going to send you a copy of every order. If you don't get a lot of orders, that probably would be ideal, or it would be fine. If you do, this might be a little chaotic. Instead, what you can do is actually set up notification settings under your profile. So if you go under Settings and click on Account, this is going to be your account, and every account has to set up their own notification preferences. We can click on Edit Profile. We scroll to the bottom here. You're going to see account settings for email activity. So you can get emails for store activity and email for new orders. I believe this groups in several orders over a certain period of time into one email summary, which is a little easier to manage if you're getting a lot of volume. Another great way to get notified is using the notification or the order alert app for Lightspeed. So what you can do, you can actually get notified directly on your phone, like a push notification, just like you would a text or an email. You would just want to install an app from the App Store. This would be the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's called Order Alert for Lightspeed. And you can log in with your ecom username. So if you're having issues logging in, make sure you're using your ecom credentials. You might need to create a password if you often switch over from retail to ecom. We can definitely answer those questions if you have them. But yeah, that's a great way you can get notified that you get new orders directly to your phone. And one last thing I want to touch on. So before, when we were on the order and we're talking about doing returns, let's take a look at order 17. We did a return. Let's open up the form. And we mentioned the notify customer feature here. When we toggle it on, you can send a custom message. There's an important step you need to take in order to use this feature, and it relates to your notification emails. You might already be familiar with notification emails, but if you want to send a custom message using this feature after you hit save, let's take a look at this really quick. So you'll want to go to Home, and you're going to want to go to Settings. We'll go to Notification Emails, and then under Return Email, which is Return Status, sorry, it's right here. This is your custom template message. All you're going to want to do is enter the message key. That will let the unique message you want to add be sent when you do return, when you submit your return form. So you can send your custom messages to customers. And if you don't want to type out the brackets with the wording, you can just type in, you can just push this message button. So that's how you can trigger it. So hopefully that is some important extra information I could put in this webinar for you. We're going to jump into our Q&A now. So just give me a second here. I'm going to look at some of the feedback we got throughout the call today. Just one moment here. Okay, so I see the first question here from Erez Cuisine. Sorry if I mispronounced that. The question is, the second order or replacement order had a greater value than the first. Therefore, the customer owes us. It's not a refund. How can you capture payment under those circumstances? So that's a great question. So in the circumstances where they're doing an exchange and the customer owes you, you could consider also creating a additional quote, just like we did before. Maybe you want to just create a quote from scratch, or you can duplicate. I would recommend maybe adding the product to that quote. And like I mentioned, you can do a custom price on quotes. So you could simply just edit the price on the fly in your quote to the difference the customer owes. You can then send a payment reminder, which is a pretty commonly used notification, to capture payment. So that's a good example. And then once you get paid the difference, then you can maybe fulfill the order, or you can, figure that out with your customer. But that's how you would do that. Hopefully that makes sense, or just let me know if you have some additional questions with that. We got a great note here from the Lightspeed facilitator. So the survey is going to be available at the end of our discussion. So we'd love you to share your feedback, so we just know, how today was and what other topics you want to hear about, so we can kind of help you out that way and create more content like this. So just stay till the end, and you're going to get a survey. We'd love to hear your feedback on it. Hey, Emad. So I see your question. I think with the creating quotes feature, we stopped at selecting the client and did not go any further. Can you show us the steps beyond selecting the customer? Yeah, so I didn't want to get super in depth, because it does actually guide you through the process of creating a quote. You're just going to want to fill out all the boxes and basically just follow the on-screen instructions. That's why I didn't talk about it today. We could definitely dive into that, or we can have a customer, an agent from our support team reach out and kind of show you the steps there. But yeah, essentially there's going to be 5 steps that are outlined on the top, and once you progress, it's going to take you to the next screen where you can fill out the info. I'd love to show you, but I don't think on the call today is really the best time. But we'll reach out to you with some more information on that. Hey, Brian. So I see your question here. I'll just read it out loud. I have been also trying desperately to get some advanced help with ecom. I am trying create a customer follow-up flow for things like abandoned cart, page view, product view, etc. But I cannot seem to connect with anyone at Lightspeed ecom to facilitate this. I don't want to use one of the abandoned cart add-on apps. I currently use Klaviyo. Please advise the best way forward. I think because this is very shop specific, we're going to reach out to you directly so we can work out exactly how you can build this flow. There is some suggestions we could make if you're not utilizing some additional features. When it comes to abandoned cart and viewing and page view, those kinds of analytics are really helpful if you're using Google Analytics, which is definitely another integration, but that's where you're going to get the most detail if you're looking to do something like that. But like I mentioned, we'll reach out to you directly and figure that out with you and find something that's suitable. Gigi is messaging, I would love to learn in the future about how to add ShipStation to my ecom. I'm visual, so in the how-to section, I'm still confused. That'd be honestly a great topic for another webinar for sure. It can be a bit daunting to set up a third-party app for shipping. We can reach out to you in this case and kind of walk through how that works. It actually is pretty straightforward once you kind of get the requirements of what's needed. So we'll reach out to you directly and help you out with that, Gigi. Hey, Brian, I see your message as well. You also use ShipStation, would love that information. We'll make sure we reach out to you about that too. Dustin, are you able to make a multi-location inventory? Great question. So yes, you are able to sell stock from multiple locations. We do have a bit of time, so I'll actually show you what this looks like. There's an important caveat to know. So if you click on, so we're in the settings screen right now, and if you click on multi-location inventory, you can see all of your retail locations set up here. So if I had multiple locations in different states or provinces or within the city, they're all going to show here directly from your retail account. The main caveat is that you can only have one primary location. So you can sell, like on e-commerce, it's going to recognize your stock level for all your locations accumulated. So you can sell stock from every location. However, the only caveat here is that it's only going to pull inventory from the primary location. This is something we plan to work through in the future, but right now it's going to just be from the primary location. So to correct your inventory, to make sure everything makes sense within your locations, you would just need to do a stock transfer to keep that accurate. So hopefully that makes sense, Dustin. If you have any follow-up questions, just let me know. And Christopher just chimed in, which is really important advice, actually. There are third-party integrations that can help map the locations for you, so you don't have to do that additional step that I mentioned. In the default settings, that is what you have to do, but you can get an integration for that. Just reading some of these questions here. Dustin, I might need to follow up with you on this question. You mentioned, does that change your ship from location when shipping? I think I need a bit more information from you, but we're actually just about to run out of time. So I'll actually just reach out to you just so I can make sure I understand you before answering. But yeah, you'll hear back from me very soon. And I'll just get a bit more information to answer that question. No problem, Dustin. Talk to you soon. So we've just hit 3 p.m. So our webinar is about to close. The questions that already have been submitted that haven't been answered, we are going to just address them as we're going to send these to support and have someone reach out to you directly. So don't worry, Adrian, Shelby, I see you. We will be reaching out. But thanks so much for attending the webinar today. I'm really glad you stuck it to the end. I hope today was really helpful in clearing some things up with how to manage your orders. If you did, you should actually receive a survey when this Zoom closes. So just wait till we close the Zoom. We'd love to hear your feedback. Just let us know how we did and what other content you want to hear from us in the future. That'd be super helpful. Thanks so much.